Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Wednesday, the 23rd of July. I'm Stephen Ridgway, and that really was Stephen Ridgway earlier. So there we go. Hello. Right, what are we talking about today? CISA has ordered urgent patching of SharePoint after Chinese groups have been seen to be exploiting the vulnerabilities live. So, as in currently, so there is currently an attack available. So, a latest update on this. I'm sure you're all over this. However, there are now patches available for SharePoint 2016, as well as the other two versions that were previously patched earlier this week. So if you are running SharePoint at the very least, make sure that you have updated it. By now, you should, if you have not been patching this, or if you have been on 2016 and there have been no patches available, you should invoke your assumed compromise process, because it is very likely that you have been compromised by the Chinese, even though it may not be obvious to you. Just as a quick reminder, as part of this, I believe that some keys are stolen as part of the exploit. Keys are stolen, so make sure that you're rotating any keys you've got on those devices, not just rebooting them. Otherwise, you will patch the system, you will think you are all hunky-dory, and you will be had again. Okay, on other matters, hackers managed to inject malicious Firefox packages into the Arch Linux repo. So if you are using Arch Linux, be aware that between July the 16th and July the 18th, there were 3 malicious packages as part of the repo. So Libra Wolf Fix Bin, Firefox Patch Bin, Zen Browser Patched Bin, being the 3 malicious packages that managed to get uploaded. The Arch team spotted the malicious packages and addressed them actually on the 18th. So this is a few days ago. However, if you have been installing any of those packages, on or around the 16th, be aware they are malicious packages. So take normal actions. Again, assume compromise from these, because once they're malicious packages, they're reaching out, they're letting the attackers know that they're there. Don't trust devices that you've installed malicious packages on. Rebuild them back to a known good state, and then move forward again from there. It's, as they say, it's a sophisticated supply chain attack, and it is a little worrying because Arch Linux is kind of used a lot in the community, isn't it? I know a lot of security people that use Arch Linux for at least part of stuff that they do. I believe it's also fairly common in the development world too. So, definitely look to address that if you are an Arch Linux user. Firefox has released an update with critical security fixes. A recommendation is to update immediately. The version to update to is Firefox 141. It addresses many vulnerabilities, but at least 4, 5, 6 of them are rated as high. if you've got Firefox installed, bear in mind also if you've got Firefox installed but you haven't had a chance to update it yet, that doesn't mean to say it's kind of okay until you next run it, because you don't know how quickly these things are going to get exploited once it sort of pops up or whatever it might be. Always make sure that all your components on your and all the software on your systems are fully up to date, especially where security patches are concerned. So if you are running anything earlier than 141 on Firefox, update now. And Chrome has released a patch to two high severity flaws, CVE 2025 8010 and 8011. They are both type confusion vulnerabilities in V8, which is Chrome's JavaScript engine, which I'm sure you all knew. So if you are running Chrome, make sure you are running the latest version. So the versions, by the way, are 138.0.7204.168 for Windows and Mac, and yes, and for Linux as well. So the rollout will reach all Chrome users over the next few days. If you are particularly concerned or you're about to go and do some security stuff that needs you to be properly up to date all the time, go nudge now. And then finally from me, something that did make me laugh. China has warned citizens to beware of backdoored devices on land and under the sea. So the Chinese Ministry of State Security is running an information campaign warning Chinese citizens about backdoored software and hardware. And their solution is don't use foreign developed stuff, use domestic Chinese stuff, which kind of raises the question of no, don't use their backdoored stuff, use our backdoored stuff. Now, it would be nice to say that when they're talking about, other countries, that specific groups that they think are targeting them, it would be nice. We know that what they're talking about are Western companies, Western organizations. In fact, anything non-Chinese, they're very suspicious about anyway. We ought to be able to say, well, actually, in the real world, that never happens. However, we're well aware of the fact that for many years, backdoors have been built into commercial software and hardware, which is sold to states that are considered unfriendly to especially the US. And you may all say blah blah blah, conspiracy theory, blah blah blah, Snowden made it all up, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, all right, believe that if you want to. I have actually seen it done. So a certain switch and router manufacturer with a famous name beginning with C, back in the 1990s, I would actually seen the backdoor or the remnants of the backdoor applied to that. So choose not to believe it if you want to not believe it. I'm not going to get into the debate. However, it is I think hilarious that the Chinese that backdoor everything and monitor absolutely everything that goes on for their own citizens, let alone, in fact, probably monitors everything that goes on for the entire world, are telling their citizens to be scared of things developed outside of China. Yeah, all right. That's amusing. Anyway, but it does. I think it is something that we need to think about, and also thinking about it in terms of geopolitics, which, as you may be aware of, I do consider to be more important than a lot of people. Certainly, a lot of people don't take some of these like major, major political positions as serious as they should from a cyber perspective. In my personal opinion, again, where a Chinese security ministry is encouraging Chinese citizens to ditch Western and or US software and hardware, I can see three reasons for that. One is it means that it's easier for them to gain the information they want from their own citizens. Secondly, it also, in the short term, undermines the economic position of the vendors selling into China. There's a lot of, over the last, since China joined the WTF, no, WTO, sorry, World Trade Organization, the we have become accustomed to buying cheap stuff from China and selling our expensive stuff into China. Bearing in mind that creating disruption is very high on the priority list for, or having the ability to create disruption is very high on the priority list for the Chinese military. Disrupting the markets, causing financial disruption to major players around the world would be something that I would think was perfectly, part of their tactics. So I think there's that is something to be aware of. Also, though, I also think that we keep playing down the China will invade Taiwan stuff. I think that they seriously are considering it, and I think that they would want to mitigate the internal risks of doing so. And one way of doing that, of course, is to get people off foreign tech and onto native Chinese tech, because it makes it harder for the likes of the US to create disruption inside China, were China to invade Taiwan and the US then goes to war with China over this. So I think there are many subtle reasons why China might be wanting to do this. But in the meantime, so I would suggest that unless you need to be using backdoored Chinese hardware and software, don't. That's all from me for today. I hope you have a good Wednesday, and I will speak to you all. I'll speak to you all again on Friday. There's no briefing tomorrow because I've got to take my dog to the vet. So I will speak to you all again.